want to share with you guys the 5 types of customers. And what I'm going to do is actually give you guys an animal for each type of customer and show you how you can actually identify what animal your customer is being while they're in front of you. Now, I understand that some of you may not be in a sales role, but this information is going to be great for you no matter what. However you interact with humans, you're going to start to see human nature come out, and you'll start to see some of the animal nature come out of those people when you interact with them. So this can help you with relationships. It can help you on the job. It can help you definitely when you are working in a sales position, and that's the main reason why I want to give you this. I feel like everyone can benefit from this type of information, especially since it's kind of fun to kind of think about what type of person you may be talking to and think to yourself, what type of animal is this person being? We often watch like the Snickers commercial where they're saying you're not who you are when you're hungry, but I do believe that everyone has a set personality that kind of is in control of their outward actions, especially dealing with people like you who may be a stranger if you're in sales. So I'm just going to get straight into it. I want you guys to follow along. And before I even start, I want to make sure I tell you, if you do not agree or you feel like that there's something that you want to add, please comment below. I definitely want this to be an open discussion and see what else we can learn and see how we can grow in our ability to improve our results in the sales world. The first customer that I want to share with you guys is the sheep. The sheep is an animal that is typically very docile, very quiet. The typical nature that people assume a sheep to have is one of a follower, one that is not going to buck the system very much. So if you are indeed selling to a person and they're not really saying no to you, they're asking very few questions, they're listening to you, but they're being quiet, they're shaking their head yes, and they're doing all of the gestures that make you feel like you're still in the conversation, but they're really not adding anything to the conversation, you may be actually dealing with a sheep. And there's nothing wrong. I know sometimes that's a negative connotation. If I were to call you a sheep, you might actually feel bad about that or get angry. But I can guarantee you that this is not meant to actually incite any anger in anyone. Plus, you're not supposed to tell a customer that they're a sheep anyway. The point of this is for you to realize that this person is going to say yes to you 9 times out of 10. As long as what you're doing for them or proposing is going to be a fit and is actually going to help them, then I don't really believe that you'll actually get a no from them. Sheeps typically don't say no. And for this reason, I'm going to share with you the approach to the sheep. And your main approach is very simple. Sense of urgency. Very often, since they're listening, they're not speaking back, they're not asking questions, the time that you spend with a sheep is very short. If you had a long dialogue, then you would be going back and forth. So there's really no reason for you to spend a lot of time going through a long spiel, especially if like your pitch for your company or your product is something that usually takes a little bit more information. If you're dealing with a sheep, I suggest that you make it a little bit more concise. You chop it down. You keep it simple so the person can keep and stay engaged. But you also don't want to do a lot of sharing information that's just a waste of time. So don't spend a lot of time with a sheep. Just go ahead and get the deal done. Make sure that you do it on the up and up because they are listening. They're not going to say no, so you could take advantage. I suggest that you definitely use your ethics here and make sure that you take care of your customer. But get in and get out. The very next customer I want to share with you guys is the COW. And the COW is actually an acronym, and it stands for cannot operate without. And typically the person that they cannot operate without is a partner, and that can be a business partner, it could be a spouse, it could be a girlfriend, it could be a roommate, anybody who is not a decision maker. Even if you're going into a business and you say speak to the receptionist, or you call a business and you speak to the office manager, that person may just be someone who you cannot actually expect a yes from. So typically you'll have a cow tell you things that they feel are going to represent what their partner would say, and when they don't feel empowered enough to say yes, they're going to default and say no. That is typically what you hear from people who say things like, hey, I have to wait until my husband gets home. Hey, I have to wait until my wife gets home. I need to speak to the manager. I need to speak to the CFO, see what he thinks. All of those types of statements are statements that come from cows. Now, the reason why I want you guys to stay positive about cows is because of the statement that you should never in sales allow a person who cannot tell you yes to tell you no. So if you're talking to a cow, you should always remember that this person does not have the power to tell you yes, and that is the reason why they are telling you no. Do not wrestle with them, do not fight or argue with them, because if your real point is to catch a sale, you're never going to do it by trying to argue with a cow, because you're really not arguing with them. You're arguing with their representation in their mind of what their partner is going to do. And often you cannot get past that, because people in their personal lives or professional lives do not want to have an argument with someone who has a little bit more pull or is the actual decision maker. Hey, I did this, and then that person is like, oh, I wish you hadn't have done that, and now that person looks bad. So you have to watch how you respond to a cow. And I'm going to give you the approach, because I believe that cows are some of the most rewarding customers that you can deal with. But the main thing that you want to do is empower that person. You can look at them like a customer because they represent the customer, but if you're talking to a cow, you're really not talking to the customer. Remember that you're not talking to the customer, or at least you're not talking to the decision maker. So if you're not talking to the decision maker, you should have a different approach. And you have to think about it like this. If you can engage that person's emotion, then they're going to be a lot more likely to tell their partner with that same emotion that you transfer to them. Emotion is more important than information at this point. If you think about it, if you were to try to give a lot of product information, you wanted to give a spiel, like your spiel, and make sure that they knew everything they need to know so that they could share it with their partner, you're probably going to ruin that sale or the potential for a future sale. And the reason why is because of the telephone game. Everyone knows that if I tell you, hey, John is wearing a purple shirt and he has a banana in his lunch bag, everybody's going, and I have 10 people, and I tell the person next to me, and the person next to me has to tell the person. Once you get to that 10th person, who knows what the color shirt is, who knows what's in the lunch bag, who knows if there's a shirt or a lunch bag at all. And that's the reason why you don't want to give a lot of information to a cow, because they're going to mess it up. Your job is to be the one who holds the information. And if you're not going to be there when the person who's in front of you relays your information to the correct person, it's probably not going to be relayed correctly. But if you engage their emotion and then they transfer that emotion to the other person, hey, I'm excited about this solution this person came by and spoke to me about, this person called and spoke to me about, 9 times out of 10 that emotion is going to engage that other person, and that emotion is going to be a lot more contagious, and you don't have to worry about the telephone game with emotion. Emotion transfer is kind of intact as it goes from person to person. And you also want to use fear of loss, because you cannot really use any of the other factors of impulse when you're dealing with a cow customer, but you can use fear of loss, because essentially you want to show the customer that, hey, I know that you're not the one who can make the decision. I know you need to share this with your partner, but I want to make sure that you understand that this is something that you need to take care of right away, because if you don't do it now, then the offer that I'm talking to you about, the features that I'm talking to you about, the opportunity that I'm discussing with you, it may not be the same opportunity that it was right now. So the faster that you can actually get in touch with your partner and give me some response or put me in touch with your partner, the better it would be for all people involved, because essentially I want to help you. If you can do that with that customer, 9 times out of 10 they will at least talk to their partner about it. Because honestly, if you don't go through those steps and you give that person so much information, they're either going to share it with the customer, the other person, their partner, and it's going to be relayed in a jumble, and it's not going to be cohesive, it's going to be unorganized, and no one is going to make a decision from that. No one's going to call you back to the office. No one's going to call your phone number. Then, look at the card. They're just going to toss it because it's going to just be too confusing. Essentially, you still want to be present during that relay of information, but if you are not, you would much rather just make that person feel good about you, make them like you, and make you aware of when that person is going to be available so you can come back, or put you in contact with that person directly. So you want to make sure that you're not aggressive with the cow, don't be forceful, and make sure you do not give a lot of information. Maybe give one piece of information that will help them. Don't try to go through your whole spiel, because it's not going to help you in the end. The next customer is the bull. And the bull is a customer that I think most people are very familiar with. If I were to tell you that this person is being a bull, you will probably understand exactly what I mean. So this one is one that I think people understand very easily. And typically bulls are stubborn people. They may not be stubborn all the time, but in this interaction with this person at the time, they may just be stubborn. They typically are not interested in new information. They kind of already feel like they know what they need to know, and that kind of can be looked at as arrogance, but that's actually their protection mechanism. That's their safety mechanism to make sure that they prevent anybody from giving them something that they don't need, them making a decision that they're going to regret later. And a lot of times the response that you get from a bull is a little bit more emotional but quiet. And honestly, it usually comes in the form of folded arms. So if you're talking to a person and they have folded arms, you are not communicating to that person. You have to find a way to unfold those arms, because essentially if you're talking to a person and they're not listening, then there's no reason for you to sit there and continue talking. So at the point where you realize that you're talking to a bull, an alarm should go off that tells you, hey, this is a person who I need to approach a little bit differently, and you need to start thinking about how that approach can work. And what you need to start doing is thinking about using the level of indifference. Most bulls are not born as bulls. A lot of bulls are people who've been burned before. I used to do door-to-door sales, and a lot of the people who I used to have come to the door would be bulls, essentially because who trusts a door-to-door salesperson? Now, what I would usually do is try to do things that helps that customer feel a lot less uneasy. I'm tall, so I used to always sit on the stoop so I could sit below them. But I always showed a lot of indifference. This decision is yours to make, sir. This decision is yours to make, ma'am. I'm not here to actually encourage your decision. I'm here to give you information that helps you make the best decision for you. And the reason why that works is because bulls usually feel like they already have the best information. Whatever they've been doing has been working up until this point. So they're 9 times out of 10 going to think about it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And that's the main reason why I suggest that you use indifference, because you want to make sure you take yourself out of the equation. When a bull thinks that you have a stake in their decision, they're always going to default to no. And that is just how it is. So you never want to sit here and wrestle with a customer who's being a bull or being bullish about what their decision is, because if that's what they want to do, that's what they're going to do. What you need to think about more is how you can influence that decision, or how you can influence that emotion. And you can do that by making sure that you are indifferent. One of the things that bulls also do is they are very aware. They're looking, they're paying attention. And you want to make sure that you don't speak on something that's going to arouse their attention in a negative way. So make sure that you don't throw out information that's not important. If the customer is really not listening, you shouldn't be trying to give a lot of information anyway. You should be engaging that person's emotion, finding out what the situation is with that person. You know, I'll just give you an example. Star Wars movie came out 2 weeks ago. I was working at the mall, and the customer in the mall walked past me, and he had on a Star Wars shirt. I said something to him about the movie, and he ignored me and kind of brushed me off as he walked by. 5 to 10 minutes later, he came back to the store and he told me that he realized that I wasn't even trying to sell him something. He thought that I was trying to sell him something, so by default, his ears told him, hey, this guy's trying to sell me something. Brush him off, keep walking, pay him no attention. Later on, he registered, hey, this guy wasn't talking to me about selling anything at all. He was just being a nice guy in the mall who saw I had on a Star Wars shirt. He must have been a Star Wars guy himself. He said, hey, something about the movie, and then, hey, you know, I was a butthole to him. I was an ass. So I think that he realized it. He came back and he apologized, and I was thankful for that. He was definitely a bull when I met him. And like I said to you before, bulls are not born, they're kind of made. And he told me that he thought that I was trying to sell him something. That's not something that he would have thought from the beginning of his lifetime. That's something that has happened to him before, and he chose that response as a result of what he has seen before. So you have to figure out what it is that makes that customer choose their bullish response. Attack that issue first, and then you can proceed into the actual pitch. Now, bulls usually take a long time because you're going to have to deal with that stubbornness. It's like really wrestling with the bull. You're a matador. You have to think about it in those terms. And when you finally get that bull into a submissive mentality, now you can take your time. That person may become somebody that becomes a friend. That person might become someone who wants to trust you from now on. And a lot of times, bulls do become loyal customers. Like I said before, whatever they were doing up until this point is what they felt like was working for them the best way. So now that you've given them some other way that they now believe is the best, They're going to be loyal to that. Bulls are very loyal. So the very next animal that I want to share with you is one that is after my own heart, because I often kind of come off as this animal myself. And this animal is the owl. The owl has a stubborn personality like the bull, but unlike the bull, the owl is open to new information. They typically ask questions. They typically ask a lot of questions. They want to exhaust all of those questions before they buy anything, but here's the thing. If you can answer all of their questions, when their questions are satisfied, they buy. That's what owls do. When they ask a question, when the animal owl, you know, will do a lot of hunting, will do a lot of searching, will do a lot of digging, and honestly the eyes of an owl allow it to do that very well. And so like that's the animal of inquisition. That's the animal that's kind of symbolic of questioning. And so if you were to think about a person who was doing that same thing in their real life, they're going to ask a lot of questions. They're going to have a whole lot of things that they want to know about. Those people usually do a lot of research on the internet. They go on Amazon, they go on eBay, they look at reviews, they kind of get intimate with the product virtually, and then they may come to you. So a lot of times you don't even know you're dealing with an owl, but when you find out that you're dealing with an owl, this is how you should approach that person. Keep it short and simple. Owls already know what they want to know. If you are giving them extra information that they did not ask you about, then you are now raising new topics that are going to be questions. You do not want to raise new topics that can become questions with an owl, because that's going to prolong the time that it takes for you to get that person to finally make a decision. Because the whole time that they're asking questions, there's no decisions being made, and you might waste your time if you cannot answer all of those questions in a satisfactory manner. So keep it short and simple. Do not raise up information that you feel like you want to give just because your pitch includes this information. You don't want to go through it with a blanket pitch thinking that this person is going to literally listen to everything that you say, take it all in, not have any questions, and say, yes, I'm going to buy from you. It doesn't happen with an owl. The next thing you want to do is use the Jones effect. Typically, you cannot really engage an owl emotionally because they're in their mind. They're all kind of cerebral with their approach to things. But I do believe that the Jones effect is one of those things that will help get them outside of that mentality, because people don't really like to be behind. People don't want to be the last one. Even if that person is an owl and they have a whole lot of questions, if they find out that they're the last person asking these questions or dealing with this issue or finding this solution, they may decide that they're tired of asking those questions, because it can become a little droll if that person is asking a lot of questions and they realize that they're really kind of becoming basic. And last but not least, guys, is the tiger. A tiger is an animal that comes from the feline family, the cat family. And if you understand anything about cats, you know cats all the way from domesticated all the way to the wild animals that you see in the jungle. All cats have the same basic mentality. A tiger acts like a kitten when it's just hanging out, relaxing, chilling. So if you were to see a person and you were approaching them with the purpose of selling, they may not seem like a very aggressive person. So that might make them come off more like a sheep. They may be just docile and they're not asking you a lot of questions, they're observant. But the one thing that makes a tiger stand out is once they see something that does not make sense, once they see something that is out of the norm, once something arouses them, their aggression comes in. So you may have a situation where you're trying to sell something to a customer and they're all gung-ho, they're all happy about it, they're all good, and then you get to a point where something comes up that they did not expect. Maybe the price was a little bit more than they thought it would be. Maybe a feature is missing, or maybe a feature is present that they didn't know. Maybe something just threw them off about you, and then all of a sudden the trust went out of the window. Now you're not dealing with a kitten. You're dealing with a full-blown tiger that's ready to rip your head off. So you have to make sure that you get the heck up out of there. But the point of it is that if you approach a tiger correctly, it will stay in that kitten mode, and you can get in, you can get out. And I wouldn't say that you can tame a tiger, but you can at least sell to one, and you can actually reach your goals. And that's all that we care about right now. Walking in there, getting the sale, and getting out. So how would you approach a tiger if you were to meet one? Once you identify, hey, this person might jump at me if they see something or hear something or find out something that they didn't like. Approach them with a sense of urgency. I don't know about you, If I was in a cage with a tiger, I would probably be looking at the gate to get the heck out of there. So if I find out that I'm in the cage with a tiger, I'm probably going to try to find my way out. So when you do that in the real world, you want to find out how fast you can get away from this person, but you want to make sure that you use that sense of urgency. And the other thing that you want to do is have confidence. That's the other thing that a tiger can do. They can smell fear. You do not want to talk to a person and you're the salesperson. So you're the one who's supposed to be in control. You're supposed to be the alpha. But if you go into the situation and you cringe to that person, now they realize that they have the power. And a lot of times a kitten will turn into a lion, or a tiger in this case, once they realize that they have the advantage. So you don't want to give that advantage to that person. Make sure that you stay on top of it. And the best way to stay on top of it is with good product knowledge and strong ethics. Do not do something that would be considered cutting corners. Don't even do something that doesn't even affect the customer that's cutting a corner. If they see you doing something unethical that has nothing to do with them, they just might respond to you as if you were doing it to them. So let's say you were going out to eat. You're going to McDonald's. You order a drink, but you order a water cup, but you fill it up with soda. That person sees you filling it up with soda. Now they know that you lied to the McDonald's cashier about what you were going to get, and now they feel like you're an all-around liar. Even though to you it's just a white lie, to you it's just a cup of soda, to you it was just a cup of water, whatever. You paid all this money for your food, who cares about this soda? That might be how you look at it, but a tiger's going to look at it and say, hey, I don't trust this guy anymore. So you have to remember that type of thing when you're dealing with people, and that's the real reason why you might get certain reactions that you never expected that send you running out of the door. So those are the 5 types of animals. You have the sheep, the cow, the bull, the owl, and the tiger. I hope this helps you out, because I want to make sure that you can go out tomorrow and earn a little bit more money. If you're not in a sales position, then I want you to find out how you can use this framework in relationships. Find out how you can use this framework on the job. Find out how you can use this framework when you go into interviews, because we are all people and we all have personalities. And I believe that every personality walking this earth will fall into one of those 5 animals at different times. So good luck to you guys. Hope you have fun, and stay tuned for the next video from GentSpeak. This presentation was brought to you from the desk of the Gentleman League. Escape the Bush League and find genuine success and greatness. Visit www.thegentlemanleague.com, The Gentleman League on Facebook and YouTube, and follow @The Gent League on Twitter.